JB here. Hope everyone's doing on Thursday, February 26th, 328 on this fine afternoon. Talk quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P down about 0.6%. The Dow was actually in the green. The NASDAQ taking on the chin. And here it is Thursday with 32 minutes left in the day and 1 day left tomorrow for the week. And S&P is pretty much flat on the week. I think it's down 0.07%. But of course, if you're watching the trading every day, it's been anything but a flat week. Everything was looking great. We had two strong days in a row. Yesterday looked like, okay, if NVIDIA at least eases the concerns around the AI bubble or even posts a monster quarter, raises guidance and says, hey, this, the AI and the CapEx story is still in the early innings. Markets could rally to all-time highs. Sure enough, NVIDIA posted, phenomenal report, at least from what what most would say would be a phenomenal report. Tremendous numbers, considering the billions of dollars in revenue they do to grow 60, 70% on top of that quarter after quarter. It's like remarkable, right? And it's like, when does it end? And then to raise guidance. And so anyway, needless to say, stock was kind of flat, which is great overnight. And then this morning, I was talking on the rant this morning. I'm like, one of those sessions you don't want to see like a sell at the open, right? And then kind of what happened, and you saw NVIDIA, which is pretty much bounced between green and red in the overnight pre-market hours, just took it on the chin, and here it is down 5%. In hindsight, of course, at the open, I was looking for bounce plays, and I traded Reddit. I'll talk about that in a second. Maybe I should have been looking to get the ASML puts and the Lam Research or the Broadcom, but that wasn't part of the plan. The plan was to add those on breaks of support, not at the open to play for downside. So another day, another opportunity. At least I didn't play calls on those names at the open, right? So take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, so you take a look at the SPY. You'll see the headlines today, right? It will say Nvidia down, Nasdaq down. But it's, all things considered, it's actually not too bad in my opinion, right? Who knows? We'll see tomorrow. PC data can change that whole scenario. We can have a gap down, SPY break 677, and then we have a rough weekend, and then all the folks will be out of their caves, especially the bears, saying, "Oh, here we go." It's done Michael Burry, right? And every downward day in the Palantir or Nvidia or even the Nasdaq, it's like, okay, here's his prophecy, his call for the market crash or whatever is coming to fruition. But take everything with a grain of salt. His pieces are great. Read, take what you will from it. I'm not trying to dismiss him, right? Because he has great stuff. Obviously, he's done well. I wish I was in a movie, right? A movie made about him. He's not even in a movie, right? Uh, but he's called for a lot of these moves over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So it'll happen, and maybe this is it. So just be open to scenarios, have a plan, and that's how I'll continue to trade things. All right, so that's overall market. So PC data tomorrow. After the close today is a lot of earnings, and a lot of the big names, obviously NVIDIA's and the Mag 7 are out of the way. But we do have, where do I have my list? CoreWeave, Dell reports, Duolingo. I was making a joke today. Well, it has a bad report. And you know what's funny with Duolingo? It's not even a bad report. Just they've investors, or at least the stock, has been accustomed to monster growth. So when there's not monster growth, it sells off. And that's a name that's kind of like the first in line on the AI disruption list, right? The checklist. Okay, cool. Translation software. Boom, we got that one. The thing is, I don't think Duolingo is a translation software. People look at it like that, like it's like Google Translate. It's completely different than that. But anyway, ran on that in a second. But a decent amount of names after the close. So interesting. Also, Intuit reports. I was talking about that, or Intuit's been a name I've talked about since the start of 2025. I thought it was going to take it on chin from its tax business. Tax business like 25% of its revenue. So I always thought that was the bear case, and that name was trading with $600-700. And then you have their small business, right? QuickBooks or what have you. So rants for other days. But I look at Intuit. I'm like, if I was trading, I don't know if I'd trade a call side. 460 calls. It's trading, what, 398? All right, I'm getting off on a tangent here. All right, so that's overall markets. Let me just talk on some individual names here. I would love to be convicted and just continue adding calls to play for moves for upside, but that's right now, it just doesn't feel like the environment we're in. So until we get to that environment, I'll continue to be small, lock positions in to cover costs, ride the rest. That's kind of how I've been doing it, and I'll continue to do that. So the SPY, we're at 689 here. Great stuff. Maybe PC data comes in flat, tad cooler than expected. Maybe into the mid 690s tomorrow. That'd be great. The flip side, that 686 spot continues to be, I wouldn't call it a line in the sand, but that'd be a spot. Hopefully we hold that tomorrow. All right, so overall markets, and also, I always take things with a grain of salt too, right? Mortgage rates down at multi-year lows, right? I think it dropped down to 6% to 10, the 30-year, and yields continue to tick lower. So I don't want to see drastic moves in yields, but as long as those don't run away, the 30-year doesn't get back up near 5% again. All good stuff. All right, overall market. Now, just quick on individual names. First, let's just talk about Corning. Uh, you knew the day was coming, and I say knew the day, but it was up 5 days in a row. Well, 4 days in a row coming into today, and obviously monster profits this week on those weekly 150s. Look great at the open. So I'm okay, maybe some continuation. And boom, sure enough, it sold off with the rest of the names down 6% right now at 150. The thing is, monster premiums baked in the stock. It's a I think it's a 14% implied move, $34, something to that. I forget where I have it. So because of that, even with the sell-off, the premiums have held up. So there's a good and the bad with this. The good, obviously, if you're in the calls, it's great because you're not losing as much on the way down. The bad is that if I get out to try and re-enter, it's gonna be expensive, and then the reward for the risk is not skewed in the call buyer's favor. But I posted that in the mid-afternoon. It's dipping. I'm like, okay, do I change the plan? So at some point, I'm like, I'm probably going to add some more positions. I still have some FOMO calls, and those are freebies. I locked some of those in yesterday. So I already locked in the 150s for monster profits. So I took the rest of the 150 March strikes off. The thing is, and not to forget, but next Friday is March, so there's only 3 Fridays left for March expiration. So with that being said, to see the implied move on GLW with no catalyst, right? There's no earnings. So to see that wide move on a name that's kind of like a it's like a Johnson and Johnson. It's like usually has a one beta. It's a 1-2% move intraday, which market usually doesn't price in that kind of move. So it's either if it trades in the 150s in the next couple of coming days, those premiums are going to get destroyed. So that was the rationale there. I was mulling it over. Sometimes I get asked, what are you doing with the position? So that's why I put that on the private Twitter and in the chat room that at the time I was going to hold position. And then as I mulled it over, I'm like, can always get back in. So I took off the rest of the 150. You never know what could happen, right? PC data could be horrible tomorrow, and we could start to move into the weekend on a bigger move to the downside. So I don't think that's a high probability, but part of being prepared for when it happens. All right, so that's GLW. So that was the plan there. And then Reddit, right? So I'm looking to play some bounce names in Reddit. I always talk about getting Reddit. And then sure enough, it's showing signs at the open. I was actually looking to the 165s yesterday afternoon. I went and I got the 160s. And I'm like, I'm kicking myself. But anyway, so I got the 160s. It's like 152. And this is while the market's selling off too, right? So Reddit had some relative strength. Then it starts dipping down to 150. My calls are already in the red. I'm like, and then it just took off. And from 940 or so all the way up to 1015, 150 to 156. I was able to take some calls off on the way up for 100%, then a little more later for close to 200%. And I just held the rest. And then it started to show weakness. And, the calls, they're probably, I don't think they're red. Are they red? I didn't want to be in a spot where I have to manage things tomorrow. And like I said, you're saying you can always get back in. So the 160s are 21 by 30. So they're pretty much cut in half from my entry. So if I wanted to get back in those, I could use just some of the rest of the profits to get in, but I'm not. I'm going to wait till tomorrow on Reddit. Just surprising to see 156 and tried 2 attempts to break further and then just couldn't get going. So I don't know if it's one of those teases again. It's going to trade back under 145 into the weekend. If that's the case, there'll be another opportunity. So that was the thought process on Reddit. Just kicking myself because while I'm watching Reddit, I'm missing out on the Lamb Research, the ASML, and some of the other names that were pulling down with NVIDIA. All right, so that's that. Then Roblox, right? Finally, 3 sessions in a row to the upside. Locked some of the calls in close to 100% to cover costs. I was looking earlier to take some more off. They were over 100% or close to that. Why don't I have this on here? Okay. But I'll just hold those into tomorrow, just the 72 strikes, because the thought process is once I close those 72s, I'm going to roll out into next week's strikes. 74 is 74.20. What is that? 74.53 is the 50-day moving average. It hasn't been over that 50-day moving average since September. I have to go back and look. But that could be like a key. Was it the dam? What was I talking about? The dam break in one of those charts. But that's what it feels like on Roblox. Like once that 74.50 breaks, it's going to be like the bulls piling in and things going to rocket. That's my opinion, right? So take that with a grain of salt. But hopefully the plan, I'm going to lock the rest in tomorrow, hopefully for monster profits. Go and get some more strikes to play it into next week. So that's Roblox. And then kind of one of those names that I haven't talked about in quite some time is TZOO. Wow, this is the OG of travel. I could go on a long rant on this one. It is the micro cap of micro cap stocks, right? A little while ago, actually a couple days ago, I think post earnings, it was a penny stock. But one of my favorite names back in the day, I used to trade this back when Priceline wasn't booking.com, it was Priceline.com. Priceline was one of the first $100 stocks, then the first $1,000 stock. But no time for history lessons here. I remember one day I'm trading uh, Priceline and TravelZoo had great earnings, and Priceline actually went up on TravelZoo earnings. Crazy stuff. This is back in the day kind of things. So it has a little notch in my heart, right? So I'm not going to use my emotion to trade, but sometimes I do find myself looking at the name because me, I look through it through the eyes of someone who knows it better than most people. So I saw it on earnings, right, and it comes up on my earnings feed, and it's not the most liquid name, not a lot of catalysts, so it's not fun to trade. So sometimes if you get into calls, it's like watching grass grow on the golf course, except it's torture for 3 months as opposed to 4 hours. So I'm watching TravelZoo from earnings, and it was $5. I look at its earnings, miserable earnings, right? But the thing is, it's a different story now. So they have a 30 million subscribers, free subscribers. They're going to they're like a freemium model. Now they're monetizing it, have a membership, $50 for 12 months to give travel deals, right? It's not one of those things where it's Expedia or some of these other travel sites where you're trying to get your hotel booked or an airline set up or a travel package. You're going on there because you're getting a deal to go to Greece because there's oversupply on a hotel or oversupply on an air. There's empty seats on airlines, or someone has to sell off inventory. And here's TravelZoo, who has years and years of partnerships with these companies that they know they can offload the supply, and TravelZoo will fill those seats. So that's kind of how it comes down to. That's some of it, but it's a great story. And the thing is, it throws off $1.5 million in free cash every quarter, so it's profitable, zero debt. It has like 10 million in cash. It's a $70 million company, so it's a lot of things are de-risked. But you can take a look at AI, and I guess AI might be disrupting that. That's some of the reason why I stayed away from earnings, because any name related to that space was getting killed, the Expedias, what have you. But now take a look at the last couple of days. It keeps melting higher. Unknown post about it in the chat room. I go look. I'm like the 750s at 20 cents. And then you look at the strikes. You got 3 weeks and a day to expiration. The stock's at 650 or whatever. I'm like, this looks interesting for at least a couple bags, right? So for me, it's going to have to get over $7 in the next couple of days. Once it does, the 750 is going to be at least a double, triple. I don't even know what they are right now. 25 by 30, 20 by 30. So that's the thought process there. So the icing on the cake, I wouldn't even call it the icing on the cake, but the CEO. And there's some weird stuff with the company. The CEO did some metaverse stuff with the travel. They were trying to create some kind of platform. And then TravelZoo like bought them, but then the CEO got shares, and then shares were sold back. Some weird stuff. But anyway, the CEO came out and did $1 million worth. I think it's $1 million worth of shares in the 543, 560 range. So to me, that's a great sign. You have some of these folks that might think there's a company that's going the wayside, and here's a CEO ready to put his money where his mouth is. So anyway, I don't think it's very known, right? So I think as the word gets out there, it starts hitting some streamers, people looking at the stock, looking at its earnings, looking at the insider buy, and maybe this has room to upside. So that's the thought process there. Also, you look at the chart, it's got room to go back up to $10. So call me crazy. Sometimes you got to think crazy. You think outside the box to make the big gains. So I got those TravelZoo calls. I look for other opportunities. I don't think I'll land any more strikes unless it catches fire, right? Maybe it needs an analyst upgrade. Not a highly covered stock. I think there's another Cascade, one of those boutique analyst firms. I have to find them. Cascadian, no, gosh, of course. Well, there's Barrington's an analyst, and there's another one on this one, Ascendian Capital, and they have like a $20 price target on it. And TravelZoo 666 right now. Lucky numbers. All right, that's TravelZoo. Just other names I watched. Duolingo reports after the close. I mean, that's stock, and I don't know why I don't have the chart up here. It was it $300 back? It might have been $300 only a couple months ago. Doesn't mean that's, I always look at that. I'm like, I'm not saying it because that's where I think it's headed, but the premiums on the out of money strikes if you can find inexpensive ones like next month, like next week or the week after, 200 calls, and you get them for like 5-10 cents with no bid. It doesn't take much. If this thing rallies 20% tomorrow, those calls they'll be like 80 cents. I'm not trying to throw around money today. I'm just, food for thought for other folks who are a little more feel like in a gambling spirit today. That's not me. Also, you take a look at the gaps on the chart, right, all the way up to 250. Not political side of things here, but Bad Bunny was at the Super Bowl. Maybe some people got interested in trying to learn the different languages, right? So if you don't know Duolingo is not you type in words and get and translate. It's a platform for folks to learn languages amongst other things, right? There's uh, you can go and learn chess. There's other things that they're working on. It's a great platform. If you haven't tried, dipped your toes in, seen what it's about, once you use it, you say, wow, okay, now I understand. So people and Citron Research, one of who's shorted, think pretty much it is like a translate platform. Like Meta Glasses used to come out with the translate feature where you talk to somebody in a different country and it translates like you're talking in English to someone who's really talking to you in French. Totally different. Nothing to do with Duolingo. But because it sounds like a good bear case on a stock that trades in insane multiples, easy to poke little, fear into the folks and into the stock. So Branson, I don't even know I'm wasting too much time on this name, probably because we have 25% tonight. I'm going to kick myself, but I'm not going to waste. It just might be a name I visit tomorrow morning. And the other name, I mean, look at Salesforce. I'm not going to call the bottom in software. I mean, there's still some signs that maybe this is not over just yet. But ServiceNow is almost at 110 here again after hitting 110 this morning. CRM's at $200. I made a joke this morning. It's funny because Jensen kind of said, "Hey, software oversold, overreaction. AI is good for software." And meanwhile, there's NVIDIA selling off today and software doing well. So it's like people are saying, "Okay, let's sell your stock and get into software names." Anyway, that's it, folks. Have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.